Many of us have heard the term happy wife, happy life, right?
Absolutely.
But that doesn't teach you as a man to advocate for your happiness as well. It
Right.
teaches you to put your happiness on the back burner for that of someone else. And those types of things, that's why you look up and you see that men commit suicide more often than women. Because society's pressures on us are incredible. And then you take it, to the next step when you're talking about black men.
Absolutely.
The world already does us no favors whatsoever. It is so challenging to be a black man anywhere in the world, but especially here in this country. So if we don't advocate for ourselves, if we don't, bump back against what society is trying to tell us that we're sometimes second-class citizens in our own relationships, it's not going to help.
Hey, what up, it's Warren, Mr. Gangsta Grills himself, a.k.a. DJ Drama.
Anybody need anything, it's important that we make sure that we take care of each other as black men, you know what I mean, and continue to build and be great. So it's a toast. This is a toast of good energy.
Absolutely.
Positive vibes. Yes, sir.
Traveling on my dream trips, no imagining. Every time you hate, you keep attracting it. Opposite attract, I guess I'm a...
Welcome back to Black Fly on the Wall. It's Lide. I am your host. Today we have a very, very important conversation. And before we get into that, we're going to allow our guests to introduce ourselves. We're going to start to the far left. Damarcus, go ahead.
It's your boy, Damarcus Jr.
The boy.
Soldier, entrepreneur, businessman.
All right. To my left.
Check. Cory Bennet, a.k.a. CB Busy Grizzly on the gram or Grizz, social media brand ambassador, big and tall model, nonprofit.
Yes, sir. Right to my right.
I mean, I don't know how I compete with a top model. My name is Tre Mcqueen. I'm a Raleigh area businessman, and I'm excited to be here.
Nice. Today's episode is Black Men and the Importance of Self-Care and Self-Love, all right, which I think is a very, very fruitful conversation. To start, I think self-care is vitally important. I think it's vitally important with you knowing yourself, spending time with yourself, having mindful moments, and being in love with yourself. I think for black men, I think we have to redefine how we fall in love with ourselves, right? How we fall in love with the bodies that we have, how we fall in love with the appearance that we have, the skin that we have, our height, our weight, whatever it may be. I feel like you have to fall in love with yourself sometimes all over again, because we all don't come from a foundation where we've been taught the importance of self-love. I learned, in the past about, we're kind of taught to be strong, be tough, be strong mentally, be strong physically, don't cry, don't show weakness. But the suppression of how we truly feel and the suppression of our emotions, I believe, is the reason why we don't live long. I think it's the reason why women outlive us at a great rate. And I believe it's the reason why we have tough end of lives. Me working in healthcare, I see men having life-ending struggles. Men that work hard their entire lives. They do what they follow the book. They put the money in their 401k. They get the company match. They got millions of dollars, and then they retire, and then they die 2 years later. They retire, and they come up with they have a diagnosis of cancer, or they have a diagnosis they die of a heart attack. And we have to look at the lifespan of that individual, of that black man, and say, between the date that he was born and between the date that he died, what happened there, right? What level of self-care and self-love was there? So to start it off, Tre, how do you personally, let's make this a personal conversation. So I think sometimes we have conversations about the topic in general, but for you personally, how do you spend self-care with yourself?
I think the first thing that I had to learn to do as a man is to realize it's okay to have limits. It's okay to say no. It's okay to not feel like you can carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Sometimes you've got to be willing to step aside from something to take care of yourself. And I say that stuff, and a lot of times it sounds like, oh, that's common sense, right? But that's not stuff that we're taught as men.
No.
We're taught, if there's a burden, we're supposed to be the ones to carry that.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to be the ones to, and to a certain extent, you kind of understand that. You do want to be the man in your household, but being the man doesn't mean that you can't get help. Being a man doesn't mean that you can't take time for yourself to actually do things that help you to just find a safe space, help you find find yourself, find and love yourself. And so for me, man, I'm married to somebody who affords me that opportunity.
That's great. It's beautiful.
She gives me that space to say, all right, look, you had a long day. I know you may need to go up to your room. I've got like my own little man room. I take my time in my man room to sometimes decompress. No TV, no phone. I just need to lay there sometimes. And for me, that goes a long way.
Nice. I like that. I like that. We're going to get back to that, how your woman supports you, because that's critical. CB.
So for me, self-love and self-care looks very simple. It is ignore that phone call. It's wait. It's sit in silence. It's take your time. It's don't rush to appease anyone else. And some people may look at that as those selfish moments, but I think now we're in a space where we recognize that selfishness is required. The world and anything else is going to keep demanding and requiring you to show up and be this way. And not to mention, we got all these different connotations and definitions of what a man is supposed to be and show up. So it's more important that you take a firm stance, and you're always going to be in opposition of someone else's opinion in some facet. So why not do it for yourself? So mine doesn't look like anything grandiose or, you know, a major like skin routine or anything like that, which all those are viable options. It's the small things. It's the simple things.
I like that.
I'm choosing not to go, and I'm not doing it out of a malicious intent or retaliation. I just chose it, and that's my choice, and I'm okay with, you know, the consequences or rewards that come of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Damarcus.
I like that when you said selfishness. I'm a Cancer, so you know I like to get in my shell. I like to, you know, sometimes when I feel like I've gave a lot out, sometimes I have to crawl back into my shell. I have to recharge. So a lot of times for you to take that opportunity to, you know, energize, build yourself back up. Man, like we get haircuts every week.
Right.
It's the simple things that we like to do. Like that's like a lot of times that's our therapist.
Yeah,
like,
man.
We like to go to the barbershop weekly. We like to, you know, get massages.
Yes.
You know, whether it's taking care of your nails, whatever it is that you have to do to, you know, to make sure that you feel like, hey, I've took that time, I've allotted that time to take care of myself. Because self-love is that most important. You got to make sure that you're charged up and that you're pouring for a cup that's not empty.
Right.
You allotted that time out to everybody else, so it's important.
I mean, for me, like self-care, I have a lot of things. I like working out, the self-care time for me. I love my skin routine, you know, so I love just getting out a good shower, you know what I'm saying, just spending that quality time with myself, just going through my whole little routine. I pick up some stuff from my girl, you know, whatever they do, because women got the ultimate skincare routine. So, you know, you can learn something from that.
All their products.
But I believe also self-love is my affirmations to myself, you know, like I am smart, you know, I am a money magnet, amazing things happen to me. And I think me constantly telling myself those positive things allows me to rebuild or build myself up even more without needing somebody else. And so sometimes I think men struggle with self-care and self-love is because they're always looking for it from somebody else. I think that's the hardest part. And I think if you're looking for that self-love from somebody else, like we had a conversation in an episode, is that man or woman will let you down. And if you don't have a firm foundation with yourself, you're always going to be dependent on somebody. And so if you're always dependent on somebody, you're going to sometimes look at self-care and self-love as something that is not beneficial to you because you've always attached it to another person. You're in a long relationship and, you know, you all break up and you're going through this transition and you don't know yourself because you never really spent much time with yourself. You as a person was always defined by somebody else. And so as men, as black men, we have to make sure that we are defining ourselves. And you can tell yourself that if everybody on the earth left, I know what routine I would have. I know how I will continue to take care of myself. I know I will continue to work out or whatever it may be. But we sometimes struggle when that doesn't happen. Damarcus, what are some ways that you show yourself self-love?
Really, it's just like you said, keeping up with my routine. I get haircuts every week.
Yeah, me too.
Facial
Need
routines.
It. Yes, sir.
Go to the spa, facials, at least twice a month.
Nice.
Not monthly, if I can.
Nice.
Massages. Go to the chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, private physician.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure you up routine checkups.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, just to make sure that, you know, that you're fulfilled, this mind, body, and soul. Just making sure that you're up on everything. So that's like stuff that I like to do for my routine. So.
And I think that's very masculine, in my opinion. I think we had an episode before where we talked about redefining masculinity. And I think it's up for men to dictate what masculinity is to them, right? Do not ever, as black men, leave masculinity up for interpretation to the community or to social media or to society. It should be what you define it as. I think it's very masculine for a man to go get a manicure. It's very masculine for a man to go get a facial because you're telling yourself that you are concerned with your hygiene. Poor hygiene does not equate to masculinity. Absolutely. Right? But those are things that people really have to think about and be like, dang, because there's a lot of fellas out there that are really ashamed to go get a pedicure or really, really ashamed of how they're going to be perceived because a lot of things that men want to do is perceived as gay.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, society's not done us any favors as far as
absolutely not.
Both men and women. But we're talking about black men right now, right? And you can see that in certain things like how many of us have heard the term happy wife, happy life, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But that doesn't teach you as a man to advocate for your happiness as well. It
right.
teaches you to put your happiness on the back burner for that of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And those types of things, that's why you look up and you see that men commit suicide more often than women. Because society's pressures on us are incredible. Mm-hmm. And then you take it, to the next step when you're talking about black men.
Absolutely.
The world already does us no favors whatsoever. It is so challenging to be a black man anywhere in the world, but especially here in this country. So if we don't advocate for ourselves, if we don't, bump back against what society is trying to tell us that we're sometimes second-class citizens in our own relationships, it's not going to help us.
And I agree with that statement too. And we haven't done each other any favors. And that's why I made the statement. I'm like, we cannot leave it up to society to allow them to dictate what masculinity is. And even to take it, and I'm gonna challenge you all in this conversation because I've even had to grow over time with this perception, right? So like I was saying before, Tre, before your comment is that, a lot of things men have been saying, women or society or your family or whatever grown up to say, a man not supposed to get their nails done, that's gay. But what about what a gay man does is not masculine? Where does that man, because we're talking about black men, so we're talking about men of all heterosexual backgrounds, all classisms, all everything, right? Because as an individual that moves in love, I have to accept their decision to be what they are, right? That's not really up to me but on what scale and what scale are we using when it comes to masculinity, whether we're talking about heterosexual, homosexual, whatever it may be, how have those constructs and those labels been placed on black men?
I was going to say those constructs and labels, I'll always lean to it comes to the way we receive information. And I've been saying this for years, men can't do shit on the internet. You can't do nothing, honestly. If you back something, you leaving another cause off. If you're not speaking up for something, you silent, and your silence is compliance. Like, we can't do anything.
Can't win for losing.
Yeah, you can't win. So it's like the key part about this whole conversation about self-love is I think we're looking at the act and attaching it to love, but the primary thing is self. Mm-hmm. It's just me and my thoughts and what I feel is, accurate at the time for me to do or whatever I want to choose to do with myself. I think those like labels and the titles of what is masculine and feminine, obviously it's going to come from society, but it comes from your family. It comes from your aunt. It comes from your mother who you as a son, you weren't going to turn out gay. It comes from that uncle who was always suspect, but nobody talked about it. And you're not going to be like them. It comes from a lot of these things that people have said, but not had those conversations with you about. So then you equate action to it. But like for me, you've said this countless times, balance, right? I think it's balance. But it's so funny when I think about that, I say, hey, I'll go get a manicure and then I'm going to stop by Lowe's because I want to use my jigsaw to make something for the house. You know what I mean? And that's a very real Saturday for me if I have the opportunity. But listen to even how I say that. It's almost like I had to pick two things that I know shouldn't go correlate.
To balance, to make you feel better about the other one. And it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like you should be able to go get your manicure, your pedicure, and go home and lay on the couch and watch a movie that you've been wanting to watch. You can go watch Brown Sugar if you want to.
Absolutely.
And that's masculine.
It is.
I like to piggyback.
I like that movie.
I like to piggyback what I've been saying because, we get a haircut, but we go run some errands.
You're right.
We gonna be seen.
We're gonna be seen. We're gonna get that haircut scene.
Hey, that's one of them things. But like he said, cleanliness is next to godliness. So it's like
Yes.
it's not really a
Money making
certain
bitch.
thing that you're gonna do that may my hands is gonna be clean.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go get my manicure. I'm gonna make sure I ain't got no black hairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go get that facial. You know what I'm saying? If I got to, I might get a body scrub.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really limit you on what you can do to be clean. Like, man, we all want to look good.
Yo, that's what I'm saying.
It's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. So, like you said, that's a part of self-love because you got to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, if you don't care about yourself, those are things you may neglect.
Absolutely.
And you're going to let somebody else define it, like you're saying.
Let somebody else define what you really are considered. So, it's not really no limit.
At the end of the day, what I keep hearing everybody talk about is we're basically saying, do what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
Don't be ashamed of it.
Absolutely.
Completely unapologetic about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm with it.
And I think too, like we have to I'm a big accountability person. So if you feel like you are living in a space where you cannot perform self-care and self-love to yourself, then you need to assess the people around you. Because that means that you are putting on a front or you are stopping yourself or preventing yourself to do things because of the perception of somebody else because you're not judging yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we can be all the way 100. I get a haircut for myself, but I also get it for my girl too.
Thank you. I was waiting until we got to that part because I was going to say men's self-love definitely correlates to our wants.
Yes.
And whether you're heterosexual,
You want them words of
pansexual,
affirmation.
bisexual, whatever, you want what you do to be perceived as likable, attractive, or something. I mean, as much as we do it as self-care because it makes us feel good, you wouldn't do anything that puts yourself in a different light to where you don't want to be celebrated from it either.
Absolutely.
So the haircut that you get, the clothes you wear, the physical fitness that you do, your routine, whatever the case may be, the way we keep our homes, all of that stuff is built around a form of validation, but not one to say it grants me the opportunity to do it, but it just validates, say, hey, what I'm doing is nice. Somebody likes it just like me.
So have it. Go ahead, Trey.
Is that healthy though? Like, and I'm not saying that it's not. I'm hearing you say that, and I'm agreeing with you saying, yeah, that's exactly how I move, right? Is that healthy? That we feel like we need that validation in order to feel good about ourselves?
I don't think we should need the validation. I think the words of affirmation that we receive is healthy. And I feel like it's healthy whenever you receive them. Not saying that you're looking for them, not saying that you're seeking them out. It's just the fact that your self-care that you're putting in is being honored. It's being recognized.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel good as a man that you in the gym more consistently than you have been, and your woman or your mom or your sister or somebody say, you look good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That makes you feel good.
It does.
You know what I mean? And then that kind of correlates with, that makes your self-care and your self-love even more important to you and even more definable. It means that what you're doing, you're on the right track.
Okay.
So you can continue to enjoy yourself as a man, but also it pushes you to continue. For example, you may love your job, but when you get a promotion, you love it a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
You may love your job, but when you get that raise, you love it a little bit more. So it's not the fact that you needed the raise or the promotion to love your job. It's just the fact that, hey, I'm getting rewarded for my good behavior.
Yeah.
Animals, dogs, kids, they love to be rewarded. So like, in that statement, I was going to ask you, CB, is how has your self-care changed since you had your daughter?
Oh, absolutely.
How has it changed?
Oh, yeah. So before, I'll say self-care for me was traveling. It was going to concerts. It was doing all that. And then I had a pandemic baby. You know what I mean? So not only did that change what I could do, but it also changed how I had to show love to myself. So the funny thing is I don't have to be alone to do self-love. Now I get a chance to share it. And she doesn't make any choices. Cameron is 15 months. She don't make a choice about what she does or doesn't go with me. But if I say I know I need to be outside, I work from home, I sit inside, and although the window is open, I'm not getting that replenishing that I need from going outside. We're going outside today. I'm going to adjust and make sure she's ready to do the same thing. But seeing her have a good time in the spaces that make me feel good is self-love to me. I still feel like it's self-love. It's just me and her. She's giving me a lot more than I actually thought. It's not the idea that I'm just outside in the sun. Yeah, I could enjoy that alone. But self-love for me is she is a byproduct of me. She is my offspring. She is my DNA living and operating in this world. And if I can see her enjoying the same spaces that I do, That's
it
replenishing to me.
even makes that space more important.
Absolutely. So it tells me when I am by myself and I feel like at the end of the day I had a hard day and I say, I sit down. This happens a lot. And any father or parent may know. You lay down once your child is officially asleep and you say, I wonder, could I have did something a little bit better today? Or could I have done like something? Was I frustrated? Was I too busy? Did I read enough books? Did I play enough often? We should have covered something today. That self-love helps you balance that out because it lets you recognize, hey, you do have another opportunity if you would choose to. And now that you're being conscious about it, make a decision that leaves you not answering these questions more often at night.
That's love.
Yeah.
That's love.
I like to say, like what you said, you went off the importance of self-love and you went off, is it healthy? The number 10 leading cause of death is suicide, which self-love is like one of the really only the cures. It may not be a cure, but it could be a prevention for suicide because suicide comes from, it could be self-hate. It could be a lot of things that could be, could be driven that could actually be elevated or be, elevated from being self-love, making sure that you're taking care of yourself. Because at the same time, you got to love yourself. You may be able to talk to someone else. You're pouring from a cup that could be full, that you may have somebody that, they just needed somebody to talk to. They could be suffering from hate, whether it's how they look, their weight, color of their skin, their hair. It could be so many things that could be, maybe elevated from just having that conversation. You just hit your boy up like, hey, what's going on, man?
Yep.
That could be the decision from them making a decision that could be unchangeable. So I feel like that's the importance. And that's when you said, is it healthy of self-love? Yeah, I feel like that could be the cure for suicide and it could raise that rate.
Absolutely. Even with the relationship, like me and Damarcus, like he hit me, DM me, was like, yo, hit me when you get off. I hit him. Had a very, very good conversation. And it was just good to like, just, how sometimes you talk to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. It's just refreshing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's good. Like, and I told P, I was like, yeah, I'm going to talk to Deke. It was a good conversation. And it was just good to kind of have that refresher, to have some different input. And sometimes you got to pick up that phone call. Like I talk about it all the time. My friends and family is like, you know how much energy we put in to not actually do that? You know what I mean? How we fight ourselves to not pick up the phone call and call your mom or call your dad or call your sibling or call your friend. You actually fighting to not do it. Whereas it should just be free flowing and you moving forward with just doing it. But go ahead, Trey.
Right. No, what I was going to say, excuse me, no COVID. What I was going to say is, I wasn't questioning whether self-love itself was healthy. I just heard what he said and I had a moment of reflection in myself. I do really like the affirmations. Is that in and of itself, is that healthy? That's what I was questioning. Because what I think is important that, yes, we need that affirmation, but we also need to realize that we are enough, right? And we need to be able to find happiness within ourselves, right? Because if we're happy, man, it's better for the world when we're happy, right?
Yes.
We're better at work. We're better in our relationships. We're better as fathers, right? So that's what I was saying. And y'all's responses, I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about being whole.
That's right.
I think that's what it is. And there's a lot of missing pieces. If you ever notice people be like, my partner completes me. Or people be like, they're the missing piece.
I never had that perception.
Yo, but I hear it and I'm just like, I hear it and I'm like, I'm honestly saddened because if that person leaves, you will have a hole.
I'm telling you.
You're literally voicing a lack that someone feels. So if they took it away, the power in that statement is talking about going back to being whole. If you show up as a whole ass person, you can meet another person that's whole. It's more.
I'm telling you, and I'm tell you something. I'm telling you, fellas, if you actually meet a woman that is whole,
yes,
it changes your complete perception and reality when it comes to dating, because you are no longer starting in the negatives in your relationship. Both of you all are at 100%, and so you don't have to spend time digging this person out of a hole where you a hole, and maybe they have some issues that they have not addressed in their therapy or whatever it may be. You're spending a lot of time coming out of the negatives, and whenever you finally get to an even playing ground, that person is happy-go-lucky. They happy that you helped them out, but you exhausted. And so you never really get to an even playing ground because of this issue, right? So I'm gonna leave you all with this statistic, and this is for my fellas. It's a study called Emotional Suppression and Mortality Risk over a 12-year follow-up. And anybody that hits the DM, we can send this out. And essentially, this is a quantitative study that they performed. They first provided the men with a survey, and the men that scored in the 75 percentile are the ones that essentially lived longer, and the ones that scored in the lower 25th percentile are the ones that passed away from either cancer or cardiovascular disease, and it all relates to emotional suppression. And so essentially, in a nutshell, I'm pretty sure it's this study and dozens of other studies out there that show that when men suppress their emotions, they die early and they die of diseases that they know they have no issue or they have no business with having. And so I always just, to sum up this conversation, I push men to express how you feel. Never be ashamed of being labeled as sensitive or anything related to those type of jargon, but always be open to express yourself and find yourself in a healthy space to be able to do that. And if anybody has any last words, I think this is a very, very good conversation. And I think to sum it all up, self-care is all about defining it for yourself, spending time with yourself. However, self-care and self-love is customized to you, should be what you go for. I think also we cannot leave labels to be defined from the community, society, or social media, but it should be something that we define within ourselves that we stand on, and that should be our foundation. And being whole.
That's it. Stand on it.
Being whole. Being whole.
Come here.
Black men and self-love. Boy, crazy.